2 American records fall on the road to the U.S. Championship. What went down at what could be the greatest track and field meet of all time? And we have a special announcement regarding one of the biggest throws meets in 2025. You take the throws, and we got the news on this week's Throw Show. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Throws Show. Whoa! It's the Throw Show. I am, of course, your host, Jason, joined, as always, by the People's Champ, Olympic trials competitor, the head throws coach for youth development at Throws University and Garage Strength, Coach Sam Weeks.
What it do?
Sam, we have witnessed some of the greatest competitions in the history of our sport with only 2 weeks since our last episode. We're going to be covering the Ironwood Classic, which you competed in.
Correct.
We're going to be covering the Prefontaine Classic, which honestly, by all metrics, is looking to be possibly the greatest single day of track and field possibly in the history of the sport. And we'll also be covering some big throws going on in Europe. But before we get into all that, we actually have a huge announcement regarding this Friday. If you're watching this on Wednesday, July 9th, then tune in July 11th as we will be streaming the LA Throws Cup at University of Southern California in Los Angeles this Friday. As you can see up on screen here, we will be streaming the 4 throws competitions: Elite Men's Hammer, Elite Women's Hammer, Women's Discus, and of course, Men's Discus. This is a 4-event meet hosted by Connor McCullough and the people at South Bay Athletic Club. We are partnering with them to put this show on for you guys. You can watch all 4 events, just like our Ramona streams that we did in Oklahoma back in April. All these videos will be free for you to watch, as well as they will be on the channel in perpetuity, meaning you can watch them at your convenience. Sam, we have some really big people throwing at this comp, and possibly just announced some of our own teammates are competing, as Sam Mattis will be coming off his Diamond League performance at the Prefontaine this weekend to compete at the LA Throws Cup, as well as his Olympic teammate Joe Brown and former Olympian Reggie Jagers. That's all in the men's discus. But honestly, I'm really looking forward towards the hammer comps, as the new, and we'll be covering this later in the show, men's American record holder Rudy Winkler will be competing against his biggest rival on U.S. soil, Daniel Haw. Sam, you've seen probably a few people are competing in this meet. What can people expect?
You're going to expect a show. If it's anything like the Prefontaine, it's going to be a really good competition. And, you know, this is following the Prefontaine, so people are in good shapes based off of that competition. So be prepared for a good show.
So our first of the 4 streams will be the women's discus, kicking off at 11 a.m. PST or 2 p.m. EST. So if you're on the East Coast, it'll be a little bit of a later broadcast towards the end. But you can expect a show. We have multiple Olympians. We have world medalists competing. Janae Casnavoid, who's a multi-time world medalist in the women's hammer, is competing. It's really exciting because, especially coming off what Rudy has just done at the Prefontaine, it has me thinking this is the best shape that Rudy's ever been in. Could he go even further and push out another American record?
We'll see.
We'll see. And shout out to Connor McCullough for putting this event on with the South Bay Athletics Club. We're super honored to help bring this event to you guys, so you guys can enjoy throws, especially if some other streaming platforms might not want to give the throws the limelight that they deserve. And as you're seeing on your screen right now, you can also check out the official LA Throws Cup website And there's also a donation button at the bottom of the website, because at the end of the day, it's hard to put on meets for professional athletes where they're properly compensated. There's actually going to be very good payouts for the athletes in this comp. So any donations that you can put towards the South Bay Athletic Club so they can host more events just like this in the future is greatly appreciated. The link is down in the description. Okay. Doing another one, round 2 of live streaming. Yeah, and actually it's going to be our same team that we had for Ramona, minus myself. I'll still be in Pennsylvania. But the main producer and director of the Ramona show, Andrew Saylor, will be directing this show along with the same team members that were on our crew in Ramona. Sam, I think from a viewer's perspective, what can a viewer expect based off the quality we saw in Ramona?
You're going to get high quality videos at different angles, and you're going to get unique perspectives that are centered around the throws. We talked about other streaming platforms not quite doing it justice, but the thing about Andrew is he is a part of Garage Strength, so he understands what throws is and what throwers are looking for. So just having that understanding, he's going to make sure that he provides good visuals and just a good entertainment for the community.
Yeah, shout out Andrew. He does a killer job at Garage Strength. He's our main live stream producer for all of our events. And like Sam already said, expect a show. So make sure you stay tuned to the Throws University YouTube channel. We'll be promoting this also on our Instagram, so stay tuned. It'll be this Friday as we watch the Throwdown in Los Angeles. And to start off the news, beyond just our streaming, another throwing event, the European Team Championships went down as new personal bests went down from some top Europeans. The Olympic bronze medalist here, Misha Kokan, throwing 81.66, a new personal best in Madrid. The hammer throw is going to be a very, very exciting event this year. We know Ethan Katzberg, the returning Olympic champion, is in great shape, but he just lost his world lead, which we'll be covering later on in this episode. But the depth of the men's hammer is also growing as we see the guys are also on that Olympic podium continuing to progress. Kokan throwing 81.66. Sam, you're the hammer expert here at Throws University. What do you see on this throw? What do you think this means for him going into Tokyo?
Dude, he just puts his name on the list of just competitors for this world championship.
Right.
I feel like this year in particular, like we've had a lot of dudes go over 80 meters.
We have, yeah.
And it's just building it's building the show. It's creating the story for what's to come at the world championships. We got, tons, like I said, tons of dudes going over 80. Obviously he's going over 81.66. So it's like, he's putting himself within that conversation of who's going to take it, who's going to medal, who's going to show up.
Do you know what I think is crazy to think about with the men's hammer specifically right now? How young all the top athletes are. Yeah. Like Rudy is actually one of the oldest athletes that's throwing over 80 right now at, I believe, 31, 32 years old, which in my mind, he still has a good amount of years left. And I think he can still progress. But it's just crazy for me to think that, yes, we constantly, glaze up Ethan, but we also have to realize Kokan and Ben Salaz, they're in the background. The other Hungarian who just threw 85 meters with the 6K and 78 with the 7K. The men's hammer showing that there's going to be a lot of top up-and-coming talent in the years to come.
Absolutely. It's like I said, it's just adding to the story of, who's going to show up when it matters most. I say that a lot, but it's just all of these guys are just throwing extremely far, and it's honestly just building up to, the epic showdown that we'll see in September.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. He's a great thrower. As we have Lolasan Dijon out of France hitting a massive personal best. And I actually looked on his Instagram. He only started it a few months ago, but 2 weeks prior to this meet, he actually threw over 68 meters for the first time. But he did what every discus thrower dreams of, breaking 70 meters right here, 70 meters, 25. We actually watched him throw at Ramona. You competed against him. I think he threw about maybe 63 meters back in Oklahoma. So
something like that.
Since April, he's added 7 meters to those distances. What do you see on his technique here, and what do you think he could do come the World Championships?
Dude, if he stays in this shape, he's going to throw extremely far.
Dude, he looks good.
He
Like,
does.
that
He
movement
looks
is so
smooth.
good.
He looks confident. He looks strong. Like you said, we got to see him compete at Ramona, which was in April, the beginning of the season for a lot of people. So, like, you know, some people will hit big tosses. Others will kind of, you know, hit okay tosses. And, you know, he was one of those guys, myself included. But, you know, we've been saying it. We've had conversation about this. It's like Ramona is a good meet to just set up your mind.
Yeah.
You know, the psychological part of throwing. You know, he only threw like 63, maybe like 64 at Ramona, but he's been attacking it this whole season, and now he finally threw 70 meters. You know, it's like one of those things, like, I've been seeing online, especially as of recently, you know, coaches talking about how nobody's throwing over 70 meters outside of Ramona, and it's
That's
like,
just false. That's
it's not true.
Yeah.
You know, there are several guys who are pushing that barrier or getting a lot closer to that barrier outside of the wins at Ramona. So it's like, I think Ramona is great. I think personally I can beat there, but I think it's good just for the mind, you know, the psychological part of throwing to set up, you know, for a bigger, you know, later season.
Yeah.
And evidently that's what we have here.
So what I think is important to just recognize is like, dude, I just want to highlight, I love this guy's movement. Like, he's not the, like, when we stood next to him, he's not the tallest guy in the world, but you can tell he has very, very long arms relative to, you know, his wingspan is very big relative to his height. But, like, he gets his left foot down so fast. He stays on the implement. You can just tell he gets a massive wrap on this throw. It's like, you know, this is one of those throws where you hope it's not like, you know, an accidental find where it's like things just line up in that moment you get the big throw. Like, you hope that he can carry a distance like this further into the season. You know, I'd like to think that, you know, this is guys who could be consistently 67 to 68 meters, you know, with the right amount of reps and, you know, consistent technique like this. But, dude, I watch a throw like this, I'm like, God damn right, that's a 70-meter throw. This is a good-looking throw.
Absolutely. He turns the other gear when he gets to double support. So it's like, you know, he's transferring everything. He's building his rotational energy and just transferring all of it into the delivery.
Yeah, and that's a French record as well, so that's awesome. And another cool thing, shout out Bo Throws for covering this because I would have completely missed this. But as a fan of throwing for, you know, since I was in high school, so 10 plus years now, you know, I watched a lot of old school throwing videos. And a lot of that stuff was like from the mid-2000s. You'd watch the Adam Nelson era of shot putting and all that stuff. But there are athletes that you'd also see in the mid-2000s era that you just don't really, you know, think about too much anymore. And this is Yipsy Moreno. She's the 2008 Olympic champion in the women's hammer throw. This woman is a legend. She was, I think, the first woman to break 74 meters, if I'm correct. But she competed for Cuba. Now she competes for Albania, but she's 44 years old, still basically throwing almost 68 meters, which is still a highly competitive mark.
No, that's super impressive.
So she competed at the European Team Championships, 67.96. I don't know if you ever watched Yipsy when she was like at her peak, but she was like, dude, I remember this, and it's funny because this is how she reminded me of Jaime would remind me of her, because she would have massive traps, and she'd like let the hammer grow, scream at the top of her lungs, like beating her chest, like very, very fun thrower to watch. And to see that she's still competing near 20 meters since her heyday, what do you think? Not 20 meters, 20 years since her heyday. What do you see on this throw?
Yeah, nah, dude. Like I said, it's super impressive. You know, obviously, like as you start to get older, like throwing becomes a lot more difficult. You know, life becomes a lot more difficult.
Right.
So you know, to be able to throw 67, like 67's far. That's pretty much 68.
Yeah.
That's far. Like that is generally far. Like it's, I guess, kind of like riding a bike. You just never forget how to ride a bike. So maybe that was her bike moment. You know, just throwing hammer. But I think it's really cool to see, you know, Yipsy come back. I don't know if it was come back or, but I guess come back, and then, you know, throw far. Like it's dope to see, and it's like one of those things where it's like, I know when I get older, I'd still like to throw, but we'll see what happens.
So from what Bo has written out, this is the first time she's competed in like 11 years.
Okay, so yeah. Like that's what I was saying.
Think about that.
Yeah.
Dude, that's amazing. Because I'm sure this is probably like a distance she would throw like at some, like if she had like a bad meet like during the peak of her career.
Yeah.
And the fact she's like up there still. I think what's cool about it is, you know, she's competing for Albania, so maybe with her being European, she might get a few more spots, and, you know, whatever her relationship with Cuba is what it is. But I think what's interesting is Melina Robert-Michon has sort of set the precedent for like what you can do as you get older in the throws.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a feeling that if Melina like goes to Ramona on the right day, could break her personal best at over 45 years old. And what I think is also cool about this throw, this is actually an Albanian national record.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so she actually broke the national record at this comp. So I think it's crazy to see, because I think so often throwers are like, oh, dude, I'm going to be done by like 35. It's like, you know, your body's topped out. I'm starting to see that might not be the case, and it could just be more of a personal decision at that point.
Yeah.
Because if you stay in good shape and, you know, you don't beat yourself up too much, and you let your body recover, you can compete at a pretty high level for quite a while.
That's fair.
And honestly, dude, I got to look. This might be pushing like a Masters world record.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, the Masters.
Yeah, I'm going to look at that. If it's not a Masters world record, it's got to be really close. But now we get into the big event, the first big throwing event of the last 2 weeks. You competed at this meet as well, the Ironwood Classic in Spokane. This is an awesome meet that's set up by the Ironwood Throws Club. Big meet every year, always big throws coming out, and they had some big throws. They started off the second day of throws with Chase Jackson setting a new American record, 2095. We've been saying all season, Chase's technique is looking really, really good. She's spoken about in interviews that she wants to be that first woman who breaks 21 since Valerie Adams. Sam, you were here to. Were you able to see this?
I was not here that morning.
Okay.
I showed up right after.
But you're able to see this throw. What do you see that she's doing so well? Because, dude, I see this, and she's on that ball forever.
Yeah, so I believe in an interview she was talking about how her and her coach and a few of her training partners were kind of testing some parts in her throw. So like she was adjusting some things, you know, so she could get a better feel on the ball to really, you know, transfer everything into the delivery, which evidently she did that here because this was on her first attempt.
This was her first attempt.
This was her first attempt, yeah.
Wow.
From, you know, my perspective, it looks like, you know, she kind of falls in a little bit. And that's why she kind of drifted towards the left sector a tad bit. But like you said, like she stays on the ball. Even if, you know, she quote unquote fell in, she's long through the delivery. And that's where she transfers a lot of that power into the finish. So it's like, if she's in this kind of shape and, you know, continues to fine tune, she's going to do it.
Yeah.
She's going to be the one to break 21.
Yeah, I mean, she's so close already, and as we'll talk later in the show, as we get to the Prefontaine Classic, she backed this up. She is maintaining shape very well.
Yes.
And, of course, we get to the men's competition, and you can actually watch this full competition over on the Throws University YouTube channel. We posted it last Friday. Peyton Otterdahl walked away with the victory, 22:09. I believe this is Peyton's first 22-meter meet of the year.
So as well.
Yeah, so Peyton's been very consistent throwing, winning Diamond Leagues over in Europe. 22 meters at Ironwood. You were able to watch this comp live. What do you think of the energy of the comp, and what do you think of this throw for Peyton?
Yeah, no, I think the energy was great. You know, there were definitely guys balling out like Nick Ponzio, Roger Steen. Yeah, you know, there were definitely guys, you know, pushing the limits and, you know, being super competitive. And, you know, Peyton was very consistent throughout this whole series, you know, going over 22. I believe he was the first American to go over 22 this year.
Yeah, because Tripp did not break 22 until
officially, because Roger and Tripp did do it at the World Shot Put Series,
right?
But in an official competition, I believe this was the first 22-meter toss. But
that changed in only a week.
Yeah, that super changed. But just, being able to watch it literally like 10 feet away, like he looks super smooth, and, I think he's in really good shape. And I believe that he is going to bring the energy amongst, the few other guys who are now over 22 who are going to be fighting for spots for Team USA.
And the women's discus also did not disappoint, as Lagi is backing up the good shape she showed at Ramona, throwing over 66 meters here at Ironwood. Lagi looks to be having the season of her life in terms of very strong distances at consistent meets. Because one thing that's plagued Lagi throughout her career was she would have these monsters at individual meets, but then fail to back them up at other comps. This looks like to be a new Lagi that we're seeing. Her technique's consistent. She's getting consistently high distances. These are the marks that's really going to craft an elite professional career. You watched this comp live as well. I believe this is your video. What'd you see on Lagi's throw here? What do you think of how she's looking going into nationals?
Yeah, dude, I feel like Lagi has a new baseline.
Yeah.
And I feel like her baseline is putting her in better positions, for longevity throughout the season. She actually battled with Gabby in this competition. Gabby threw 65.
Yeah, when we get into
before
that.
she threw the 66. So, it was good to kind of have some competition, which, I think is always good for everyone amongst the board. And, they were super cool. Like, they weren't like beefing or anything. It was like, yo, like you do 65. All right, I'm going to go, try and push for that. And, they were super camaraderie after. But just looking at Lagi in her series, especially, after the competition, it's just like, I feel like she's in a much better spot, especially going towards, these bigger meets where, Val is still undefeated, and she's the only one who has defeated Val in, the past few years. So it's like, all right, good. Keep getting these good competitions, under your belt, and then just keep, having the foot on the pedal so you're in good shape. And then, you never know what happens.
Yeah, actually, you just brought up something interesting. I'd have to look to see, did Val go undefeated last year?
Yeah. And she's
so that means her
undefeated right now.
So that means her last loss would have been against Lagi in 23 Worlds.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that really hypes up the excitement for the comp between those two then, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And Lagi is also the reigning world champion, so she has an auto bid to Worlds.
Yep.
She's already punched her ticket to Tokyo. And as you were speaking about, our teammate from Garage Strength, Gabby Jacobs, backing up her huge mark from earlier this year, going 68 meters. She throws 65 meters here at Ironwood. Like you said, it was a back and forth battle between her and Lagi. Man, dude, I'm so glad that Gabby is really like living up to that throw, because her technique is looking so crisp now. And I'm seeing like, dude, Gabby keeps going at this pace the next few years, she's going to be one of the best in the world. I think she definitely could make a podium.
Absolutely.
I think she is showing that level of ability. Like I said, I think her technique looks amazing right now. What are you seeing on Gabby? You've probably been talking to her a bit more here at Ironwood about what she's thinking about. Where's she at, and what do you see her doing at Nationals?
Yeah, me and Gabby, we have this funny thing. Gabby will come up to me and she'll be like, I got 2 Qs. And that's all I'm thinking about. And realistically, that's all it is.
At this level, that's
all it is. Whether she does those 2 Qs or not is another thing. But, we joke about this. Me and Gabby joke about this. But, I feel like Gabby's been on a roll this whole season. Yeah. Obviously, she's part of GS. Her and Dane have been, figuring out her technique, how to maximize what she's currently doing so that she's in a position to throw far. And, it's good to see her compete, against some of the best in the U.S., really, really well.
Yeah.
It's only just going to further her chance of making a team, down the road. Now, women's discus right now is unbelievably stacked.
It's the best it's ever been, at least in the United States.
Best it's ever been, and it's unbelievably stacked. So it's going to be a fight, but having competitions like this, especially this late in the season, is really, really good, for setting up to making a spot or making a team.
I want to comment here. The big thing I see that's different between Gabby now and a Gabby a year ago? her catch position is so much deeper than it used to be. And I feel like we've always known Gabby was super twitchy, like very just like she's just a spring waiting to explode at all times.
Yeah.
But I think what that caused her to do is be a little jerky with her motion in the past. And I don't think she would get as much pull on the implement. But now, when she's having 65 plus meter throws, her length on the implement is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like, it's showing that I'm like, dude, what's nice about that is that's a fix that's like when you get really consistent at doing that, then your baseline just goes up so much higher.
Absolutely.
And another garage strength athlete actually took home the victory at Ironwood on day one as Mauricio Ortega, who competes for Colombia. They're 65-56. Mauricio is such an interesting athlete for me to watch because I swear it's like he adapts to whatever environment he's in.
Yeah.
Because with a lot of home meets, and this is no slight towards Mauricio, it's like he'll throw between maybe like 58 to 61 meters. But when you put him in an environment where there's deep competition and it's like it's a world level event, he shows up. And he's proven that in his career when it comes to the Olympics as well, making multiple Olympic finals.
Absolutely.
What do you see on Mauricio's throw here? And what do you think that him and Dane are working on that's like they're trying to evolve? Obviously, like it's strange when you get to a new coach right before the season starts like he did. But what do you see him in terms of like what he's trying to do to improve his technique as he leads into Worlds?
Yeah, so from what I know, he's working on getting wider, a little wider out of the back, getting off the left a little bit sooner out of the back, and then just really establishing a high point.
Okay.
So I think he does 2 to 3 things on this throw, especially for what we've been seeing, you know, outside of this competition, because I know what you're talking about. But he was dialed in for this meet. You know, he did go down to South America for a couple competitions, and when he came back, he just looked so much stronger to me. Like, he had a Zenkai boost. I don't know what happened down there, but he just came back more proficient with his movement. He looked stronger. He looked fresh. And he was able to throw, I think, 65 the first day. And I think he threw, it was either 64 or 65 again on the second day. So, like, he was on fire the whole Ironwood trip. And, like, it's one of those things where he's been competing extremely well, and he's going to go down to Memphis this weekend, this Saturday, and also compete again, you know, amongst really good, you know, a stacked field. Like, I know Roja's going, so it's going to be very competitive over there. So I just feel like, you know, obviously he competes well here. I think he's going to go down to Memphis and really kind of just surprise some people like, yo, like, I'm legit.
Yeah, make sure you guys check out that Memphis competition. I don't know if they are streaming it, but try to, you know, find a link if possible, because it's actually going to be a really crazy event. The shot put and the discus at the Ed Murphy Classic. And one other thing I also just want to mention here is, like, Throws University's train multiple professional athletes, but we also don't just train professional athletes. You can be a thrower of any age, any level, and train with us. We provide custom programming. Sam here writes all the programming himself. You can get analysis of your throws so you can improve your technique. We work with athletes all over the world. Sam, what can people expect from custom training here at Throws University?
Yeah, so custom training is custom to you. So we'll communicate, you know, your goals and your needs, and we'll create a science-based program that's been proven to work, you know, through our GS athletes and our Throws University athletes, you know, that's tailored to you. You know, these programs are science-based, and we're using a lot of data from previous years to make sure that we're going to put you in a position where you can be successful. Now, with these programs, obviously, we'll have a ton of communication, so whatever we need to adjust, we can, but we just want to make sure that you're in a place to be successful. So if you're looking to level up your throws, head over to throwsuniversity.com and pick up a custom program.
You can check out the link in the description as well, directly to our custom programming page. But we're going to stay with Ironwood for one last time. And what's funny is I want to show this up because I wouldn't have known about this athlete unless you posted this video. As we say, Jakob Ekwe going 61-22. He was a Wisconsin Eau Claire alum, D3 national champion 2 times, I believe. But 61-22, him, and Legend Hayes all have a kinship as being former Division 3 discus throwers.
Mm-hmm.
I see this guy, and I'm like, dude, there's way more left in the tank.
Oh,
like,
100%.
Jakob, don't stop throwing. This is me. You don't know who I am. I don't know who you are, really. But what I can say is you have a lot more to give to this sport, and you should keep throwing if you're able.
Absolutely. I got the privilege to finally meet him in person. And It was just really cool, being amongst each other, like myself, Legend, and Jakob, just being like, yo, we're D3 guys showing up.
All thrown over 60 meters.
All thrown over 60 meters at Ironwood. Who would have thought? Obviously, Jakob went 61. This was his first time over 200 feet.
That's awesome.
And it was just it was cool. He did it on his first attempt, too, which was huge. This was day 2.
Hell yeah.
But it was just one of the coolest things. It's just being able to talk to him, just kind of hear experiences, this past year, in the D3 realm, and just kind of just sharing stories we were all just D3 guys, and now we're in this professional realm, just showing that anything is possible and divisions don't matter.
No.
If you want to get better, there are plenty of resources, especially at throwsuniversity.com, to get better. And it's just just sticking to, the dream and just really pursuing and just, taking it day by day to get to that point where you finally make it.
Yeah.
And this is one of the testaments to that, just stick to it, grind.
Did he tell you what his plans are? What his life plans are with discus?
We didn't really discuss that so much. We were kind of just in the moment.
Yeah.
But I know that him and his coach, Roger Steen, were just talking about, this season, just kind of setting up for nationals. I think they might have mentioned something about the, I forget the exact name, the college games. University games.
World University.
Yeah, the university games. So
that'd be a very cool meet to compete in.
I believe that might be in their schedule, but don't quote me on that. But dude, 61, going over 200, he's in really good shape.
Yeah, hell yeah. I think that's awesome. I think it's clear that he's got a lot more left to give to the sport, so I hope he keeps going at it. And you can't really find a much better training group and coach than Roger Steen.
Absolutely. Another D3 guy, by the way.
Another D3 guy and D3 national champion, one of the best shot players of all time, and we're going to cover him later on in this episode.
Is he the first D3 guy to go over 22 meters?
Bro, he's the first D3 guy to throw 70 feet.
Look at that.
Before we technically get into the Prefontaine, but this is related to the Prefontaine, big news in regards to the NCAA, but also the professional track and field world. Mikolas Alekna is not done yet with the NCAA. Mm-hmm. There is a lot of speculation, rumors as to what he was going to do after nationals, after being upset by Ralford Mullings. Mikolas was the strong favorite. He's the world record holder. And with his coach, Mo Cetera, going to Texas, we weren't sure. Was he going to follow Mo to Texas? Well, it was just announced prior to Prefontaine that Mikolas has signed with the University of Oregon. He is going to be an Oregon Duck, and he will be working with Brian Blutrick, one of the most successful throws coaches in the history of the NCAA. Mm-hmm. That man has coached multiple NCAA record holders, a lot of incredible shot putters. He coached Jorinde Van Klinken to throw over 70 meters in the discus. Mm-hmm. So we're talking about, him going from one Hall of Fame coach to another Hall of Fame coach. Mm-hmm. The level of quality of, assistance that he's going to get has not really dipped at all. But what do you think about him going to Oregon? And I guess this would be a fun speculative question. Do you think part of this was a money thing?
To answer your first question,
because Mikolas is playing very coy about why he went to Oregon versus he obviously you can talk about Blutrick.
Yeah.
But when people asked him after about leaving Mo, he's kind of just yeah, Mo's great. He's a great coach.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to say that he's slighting Mo at all, but I think it's just interesting. Is there more to it than just I wanted to, go to Oregon? How much of this is a money thing in your mind?
Yeah, so I think it's good. I think it's a great thing that he's going to Oregon, to work with Coach Blutrick. I think it's good that he's going to get good quality reps in that circle because clearly there's something.
That's a fair.
Some bad juju or something, but I
Not
think
unless it's a Prefontaine or a world championship.
Yeah, unless it's anything outside NCAA, but more reps in that circle, the better. But I just feel like it's a smooth transition. It's a good move.
Mm-hmm.
Are they giving him a bag? Probably. And in a sport,
assume so. Yeah.
In a sport that you don't really get paid,
not guaranteed.
Go get your bag.
Especially if you're a sprinter right now.
Yeah. Well. Hey, go get your bag. So
that's for a future episode of the Sprint Show.
But it's just like one of those things where if you could just put yourself in a position to be financially stable, why not take that chance? I feel like what him and Coach Mo Cetera have done has been great up until this point.
Right.
But it's like one of those things where it's just like they did what they needed to do. He threw a world record under his utilage.
Yeah.
He has multiple silver medals under his utilage. Now it's like, let's try something different. Now, this isn't really going to change. Like, obviously, he still works with this Lithuanian coach, so it's not really going to change too much, but it's just kind of adding a little bit more to, that, I guess, base camp. Mm-hmm. So he's in a position where, he can continue to progress this sport farther than he already has.
Yeah, and he backed that up. Like, he won the Prefontaine handedly. Throwing, he was the only athlete to go over 70 meters in that comp. Ralford Mullings also had a great comp, throwing over 68. But 70-97 in that same ring that he couldn't get over 66 with a few weeks prior. It's so interesting, like the story of Alekna in college, because all signs point that he should just steamrolled his college career. Mm-hmm. But he's had various ups and downs, and it's just interesting to see, like, he almost seems more comfortable in a professional track meet than he does in a college track meet. And I'm just, like, trying to understand the psychology of why that is.
Yeah.
Outside of maybe he's put so much expectation on himself with NCAAs that it's become a mental roadblock. And I think you honestly could be right about more reps in that circle eliminate all potential factors. Mm-hmm. But knowing his luck, maybe they're gonna move NCAAs to Austin or something, which would be the ultimate, like.
Now you have to.
That is so ironic if it would have moved to Austin, because they've done that before.
Yeah.
But yeah, Miklos went 70-97. Were you able to see this throw? I couldn't find any social media on it, but
no, I don't think off the top of my head.
It was a pretty typical Alekna throw. It looked good. Yeah. Like, I think what's interesting is, like, Alekna's one of the it's him and, like, Alex Rose. I've seen guys that can throw really far with a lot of fluttering on the discus, and it's like the same way there. But another 70-meter throw, deep comp. Our teammate Sam Mattis, who you will be able to watch at the LA Throws Comp this Friday, got fifth or sixth at this competition, throwing over 65 meters, representing the United States. But this is a pretty deep comp in terms of the men's discus. Daniel Stahl was there as well. Mm-hmm. A lot of, like, I think what's interesting is, like, 65 meters is, like, regularly getting, like, fifth or sixth place at these meets versus, like, 65 a few years back could get you top 3 pretty regularly.
Yeah. No, it's just the evolution of the sport, and that's amongst all of the events have gotten significantly better. So now we have new baselines.
And if you want to talk about evolution of the sport, our boy, shout out Bo Throws for making this post, but we got our boy Rudy Winkler, honorary garage strength thrower. Is he technically garage strength? Not really, but we say he is. Breaking the Diamond League record, the American record, first American over 83 meters. This man went 83.16. We've been glazing Rudy this whole season because he's just such a nice guy. Yeah. He's such a nice guy. He's a good thrower, always welcome for conversation and giving you some information to teach you how to be a better thrower. We love to see it. Couldn't happen to a better guy. What do you think of Rudy's American record? 83 meters. He also beat a stacked hammer field, which featured the Olympic champion, world champion Ethan Katzberg, who also threw 81 meters. And he took him down. Couldn't do a better place than the Prefontaine Classic.
Mm-hmm. One thing, and this is kind of off topic, but one thing that Dane has been talking to us, especially at this point in the season, is attacking your first 3 throws.
Yes.
Like really trying to win a meet or just go big in the first 3. And, that's what Rudy did here. I think he opened up at 80 or 81 meters, but this was his 3rd attempt at 83.
Yep.
So it's like, this is huge. Especially having a guy like Ethan Katzberg in, a same competition and, some of these other guys, in this competition. I think he's in really good shape. Like, he had a really dominant series, and it shows just, how, good of a shape he is in. Like, when we talked to him during indoors, we were talking about, pushing towards that 84, and we were saying, who is it going to be?
Yeah.
Like, there are several guys who could potentially do that. And Rudy just said, it's most likely going to be me. He's made a statement like, yo, I'm in good shape. I'm going to keep the ball rolling. I'm going to be that guy, and let's see what happens.
So this is also just a pretty stacked competition in terms of, this was basically any World Challenge or Journey to Gold meet that you'd find internationally in terms of the talent involved. So you have Ethan Katzberg, reigning Olympic and world champion. You have Nowicki from Poland, who is the Olympic champion from Tokyo. And then you also have Kokan, who we already covered, who was the Olympic bronze medalist. So, there were multiple athletes in this field that's, you would see in any world and Olympic final. And I think what that's going to be great for him is, okay, so the last time he broke the American record, it was at the American trials in 21. At the end of the day, you did it on home soil, in front of an American crowd with American athletes. And the big sticking point with a lot of American hammer throwers has always been, can you do it overseas? Can you do it with actual international competition? And he did it here.
Yeah.
So I think that's got to be an even bigger confidence boost. That's yes, it's very cool he did it at the Prefontaine, but he did it in a field that you would see at any world championship.
Absolutely.
Well done, Rudy. Well done.
Well done.
And the hammer glow up didn't just end with Rudy. As Cameron Rogers, the reigning Olympic and world champion, just like her teammate Ethan Katzberg, broke a new Canadian record, 78 meters 88. I believe that's probably 4th or 5th all time. It's one of the top 5 marks all time for sure. 78-88, huge throw from Cameron Rogers, showing that she's in phenomenal shape as she leads towards the world championship. And what I think is a hard puzzle to figure out with Cameron is just her consistency at big meets.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the Americans have struggled, as we've seen, Brooke Anderson, Deanna Price throw farther than Cameron, but it's just the consistency that Cameron has over 77 meters at these big meets. What do you see on Cameron's throw here? And what do you think of her as she leads into Tokyo?
Yeah, no, I remember watching this throw in particular live. And when she let go, I don't know if anyone caught this, but she had a little smirk on her face. She knew. Yeah, she knew it was a big toss. Now, obviously, we had to wait to see how big of a toss it was, but she knew as soon as she let go, she had a little smirk. I caught it instantly, and I was like, oh, that's the throw. That's the throw. That's the one. She just went big. And, it was a new record. It was a new PR, 78-88. Like you said, Cameron is super, super consistent, and she's going to be very hard to beat if she continues this consistency, come Worlds.
Yeah.
I think Cameron obviously is the favorite. Now, I don't want to knock any of our U.S. Women because they've been balling too. They've been going crazy.
Yeah, I mean, Deanna's gone over 78, Rachel's gone over 78, Brooke's gone over 79, so it's
But when we're talking about consistency at the highest level, Cameron's the face of that. Yeah, Cameron's the face of that.
And I think that's where we always go back to. It's when he says get it done the first 3, that all goes back to the level of consistency that you can generate at these big meets and confidence to be able to throw far when it matters.
Yeah. Also, this was the first non-Canada sweep in a minute. With Cameron and Ethan.
Without Cameron. Yeah. So when Cameron and Ethan do compete at the same meet,
for whatever
usually
reason,
they both
just
win.
Sweep. Yeah, they just sweep.
Well, I mean, Ethan could be Ethan could be like the next like Usain Bolt of hammer throwing potentially based off how young he is.
Yeah.
So that's not too surprising. But you're right. Is usually when
didn't
these
flip
guys
it.
compete at meets, they go one. They both go first place. Yeah, I
Just
think.
a little note.
No, that's a good note to end on. And we talked about earlier in the show breaking the American record going 2095, but she just didn't stop there with the 2095. A throw so nice we had to show it twice. 2094 at Eugene, pre-classic, 1 centimeter short of her American record, only 6 centimeters short of 21 meters. That magic 21 meter line that we know these women can hit. Right now, it's just coming down to doing it on the day. Chase is setting up to have a season of a lifetime. What do you see on her 2094 here, and what do you think of Chase as she goes into the national comp?
Yeah, so this throw compared to the throw at Ironwood, I feel like she's better stacked and she's not as folly, which is good. Now, it was a centimeter below that, but it's like this is good, for Chase, just in general. Like
the consistency
it's telling everybody that she's in really good shape and she's gonna do it. Like she's gonna do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like we've been talking like who's gonna do it, and I've been pretty much like, yo, if it's not Sarah, it's definitely gonna be Chase. And I think Chase is really taking that step forward. Like I'm gonna be that person to do it.
I think she's going to be like. I think what's nice to see about Chase here is she looks so aggressive in what she wants to do and how to make the throw happen. And I think that's a good contrast to someone like Sarah Mitten. And I love Sarah's technique, but I feel like with Sarah, the nature of the way she throws, it's almost like she has to get everything to line up from the get in order to get a big throw. I think the throw that she had leading into this one that we're watching right now, which is 2039, her throw prior to this was like 18 meters. And I think that's like the discrepancy that she can have between distance. And I think that more comes, Sarah's relatively small for a women's shot putter, but she has some of the best technique, which is why she's able to generate so much energy. And I think her ability to produce those results at big meets is what separates her from the rest. What do you see on Sarah's throw here? But what do you see in terms of like the depth of this competition, like that Chase set the tone for?
Dude, like we've seen it plenty times this year. It's anyone's game.
Yeah.
Obviously, Chase is in a really good spot. She's very consistent, but we've seen, other competitors like Sarah beat Chase before.
Yes.
So it's very doable. It's whoever shows up on the day. It's just like one of those things where Chase is very consistent right now. It's going to be tough to beat her, but she is beatable.
Yeah.
And, Sarah is one of those, athletes who on the right day could do it. Now, I do think Chase right now, technique-wise, is super smooth.
Yeah.
And Sarah, like you said, she is smooth with her technique, but sometimes she'll have throws which are a little bit less than what we know she's capable of. So it's like, she has to be dialed in. She got to make sure that everything is clicking and just, let it rip.
I love it. Keep the Beyblade meme going. I love it. We need to get Sarah on the show sometimes and tell her that. I know Eric's already told her, but I think it would just be a funny thing that we keep going. Not only did Chase and Sarah go off, but this whole competition was absolutely insane as we had another 20-meter throw in the same competition. Jada Ross at her home facility. She was an Oregon Duck. She's an Oregon native, throwing a new personal best, 20 meters 13. Jada had a huge career last year in the NCAA, being the only woman to ever throw 20 meters. She went to the Olympics, got 4th place. Jada is showing that she's a competitor with the best of them on the day. What do you think this 20-meter throw from Jada? And again, same question for Chase. How do you think this sets it up for nationals?
Yeah, dude, it just puts it in a better spot, to, make the team. Obviously, I think Jada is definitely one of the favorites of making that team, claiming a spot, especially after going 20 amongst this stacked competition. We had 5 women go over 20 meters.
Yeah, Madison Lee went over 20
Yes,
for the first
we had,
time, right?
We had
Yeah.
5 women go over 20 meters. So it was like, it was very competitive. And, Jada, I always feel like Jada's one of those athletes who stays, cool, calm, collective, especially at, bigger competitions where the pressure's on. And, I feel like that's when she really kind of shines.
Yeah.
And she was able to do it here, amongst 4 other women going over 20 meters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's interesting to mention, like, we don't have video of it, but Madison Lee Wesh going over 20 meters. She was the Olympic silver medalist last year at Yemi. She's one of those athletes that we don't talk about too much on the show, but always keep an eye out for her because every time a major rolls around, she always performs. Mm-hmm. If she doesn't hit personal best, she's reminds me very much of Matthew Denny in that regard, in that she always hits close to her best at the very least at a major championship. Mm-hmm. So be on the lookout for her. She could do what she did in Paris last year, this year in Tokyo. So we'll be getting into the women's discus now as Valerie Ullman is doing Val things. 70 meter 68, new Prefontaine record. Another 70 meter throw at the University of Oregon at Hayward Field. She might be setting a record for the most amount of 70 meter throws to take place in that one venue at separate meets. Because I don't think I've seen another athlete who's thrown 70 meters this consistently at this circle. But, dude, Val, it was a Prefontaine Classic. It's a Diamond League in the United States. You knew Val was going to show up.
Yeah.
It's almost getting hard to talk about when you're this good.
Yeah. It's inevitable. Like, it's
yes.
going to happen.
If there's one word to describe Val right now, it's inevitable, which also could be dangerous as we head into Worlds, because that could be overconfidence to some degree. But, like, I just don't see another woman who's just able to consistently match this level of intensity and performance day in, day out like Val does.
Yeah. I think, we said Cameron is the face of consistency. Val is also, amongst that. She went undefeated last year. She's currently undefeated right now. We said the last person to beat her was Loggy. And it's like one of those things where it's like, you never know what can happen down the road. But just based off of pure consistency and, how many marks she's had over 70 meters this year, like, those other athletes are really going to have to be in perfect shape. Like, it has to be the perfect story for, anyone, because there are several women who are going crazy right now, to beat Val.
And we'll cover one immediately following this.
Yeah. It just goes to the testament of, who she is as an athlete and just the camp behind her and what they've been doing, leading to these competitions.
Yeah, and with Zeb now being gone from the NCAA, it's like they can just dial her in that much better going into Worlds. So, I mean, we'll see. But, like, it's just funny that we're getting to the point now where she's so dominant that I'm like, I don't know what else to say anymore. I'm almost, hoping some other athlete does something just so we have something interesting to talk about. But, dude, like, we're watching one of the greats of the sport, and that needs to be respected. This is Ryan Krauser 5 years ago. This is, Michael Jordan playing in the 90s. Like, this is just an athlete who is at the top of her game, doing what she does best, and everyone else is trying to catch up.
Yeah.
And if we're talking about an athlete who's trying to catch up and doing a very good job of it, Sierra Jackson is having the season of a lifetime.
Absolutely.
She is living every thrower's dream right now. Mm-hmm. As she comes out, was not a heavy favorite, though a good thrower going to the NCAA. She threw over 64 meters going to the NCAAs, competed for a small Division I in Fresno State, walks away national champion and meet record holder, and then because of that gets invited to come back only 2 weeks later to the Prefontaine, the biggest meet in the United States each year, individual meet. And she goes even further, setting a new personal best over 2 meters further, 67.82 to get second place. I don't know what else to say about Sierra, but, like, congratulations, because you can't ask for anything better. You get invited back, first Diamond League, and you beat a stacked field. Sandra Elkasevich was in this. Jaime was in this. freaking Loggy, the defending world champion. So it's like, I don't know what else to say. What do you see on Sierra's throw here, at least technique-wise, and what do you think of her performance here in Eugene?
Yeah, dude, this was a heck of a pro debut.
Yeah.
Like, this was her pro debut. I also think this was huge because she had 3 fouls, before this, which I don't really know the rulings. I think
it's because they had a smaller field than you could have do a final. Okay, so I'm just going to be very honest here. I'm not a fan of that. I feel like if you do foul your prelims, you should be out of the competition. It's all respect to Sierra. Yeah. She did the thing. She followed the rules as they were laid out to her.
Absolutely.
And she did it. So it's like, this is not me trying to throw shade at Sierra, but I think just in general with the way comps are laid out, in my mind, if you foul all your 3 and you're at a major comp, like...
See, I think that's not to derail this conversation, because it's like when we have throws meets, it's like, all right, you're automatic 6, especially if we only have 8 competitors. But it's just like, this is a major championship, so let's like, what are the rules behind that?
Well, it was the same thing at U.S. indoors in the weight throw. The way witness was a Janaea Stewart who fouled.
It was someone
because Jelani had to just do the dump at the 3rd round. Because she thought she needed to get into the final, and then another athlete completely fouled out, but then still made the final. Yeah, I just don't know how I feel about that.
If you know the rules, let us know down below.
Yeah,
if you have information on that,
if you're an official, please let us know. I'm curious about that. But regardless, what do you think of Sierra's
No,
here?
like, she's dialed in. Like, she went 65. Like, she broke 65 for the first time a couple weeks ago. And to double down and go 2 meters further, that's absolutely crazy. In your pro debut, dude, like, she is on a roll. Yeah. Like, she is another athlete amongst the stacked field in the U.S. right now. And it's just like, when I was talking earlier, I was like, oh, like, Gabby's definitely going to be, like, within that position. Jaden Ulrich is definitely going to be within that position to make a team. Like, now Sierra is in that conversation, like, seriously in that conversation to make a team.
Yeah, it's going to be crazy to see. We've been talking about how the women's discus is super interesting this year for the United States, as we have 4 spots available. Loggy's automatically going. We can assume Val's going to go. So who's going to take those 2 other spots? We have Sierra now, but we've been talking about Gabby Jacobs. We've been talking about Erica Beisel. We've been talking about Veronica Fraley. We've been talking about Jaden Ulrich.
Yes.
So it's like, dude, there's so many women that have thrown in excess of 66 meters this year alone at the top of their game. It's like, it's anyone's call who's going to make this team.
Yeah.
Out of those extra 4. And... this is the only video I could find of this throw, but we're going to get finally into the men's shot put competition, the deepest men's shot put competition of all time. More men over 22 meters in this comp than ever before, as Joe Kovacs leads, winning 22-48 with a new world lead. This is a pretty good throw for Joe. This is a big bounce back from him throwing at Hala earlier this season, where he only threw like 20-70. So to come out of Prefontaine 22-48, Joe's showing that he's back into form. What I'm very interested about right now is Krauser going to open up at U.S. Nationals, or is he not going to throw this year? And that really opens up the gates wide for what happens at Worlds, especially with Joe being there.
Yeah. Obviously, Krauser's like the avatar right now. When we need him the most, he disappears.
That's where I'm wondering, like, well, is he going to debut at Nationals at this point?
I think
it's got to be.
Yeah, I think if there's any meet to debut, I think it is going to be Nationals.
But what do you see on Joe's throw at the very least here?
Nah, dude, Joe's in really good shape. He looks strong. He just,
dude, his arms are so freaking
he looks
big,
stacked,
bro.
It was reported online that he had a 23:50 warm up. So it's like, it's there. It's very doable. Now it's just making sure that he's in a position to do that in competition. Obviously, he didn't throw 23 in this competition, but 22:40, like, that's not a mark to overlook. Like, that is far.
Yeah.
And,
it was enough to win.
It was enough to win, yes. It's good to see that he's in great form, especially towards this back end of the season, gearing up for Nationals and, gearing up for that World Championship. So, Joe, obviously, without Krauser, competing as of right now is our face runner. So it's like, all right, good. You know, he's amongst the few others who are going to show the world like USA is still dominant.
Yeah, and what's interesting is I saw the warm-up throw too, and what's funny is it's not even as far as the warm-up he had at trials in 21. So I was lucky enough to capture video of that throw where he went like 20. I think they measured at 2384.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like crazy to think like, yeah, he definitely is in 23-meter shape. Will we see that? Time will tell. But it's like Joe's been just blasting warm-ups for over a decade now.
Yeah.
And it's like we know he's thrown the world record so many different times. It's just they've never been marked. So
yeah,
it's interesting to see, and interesting to see how he sees in nationals. And we get to the men's competition. We were talking about 5 women throwing 20 meters. Well, we're also talking about 5 men that threw 22 meters as Trip Pippery gets it done, does the thing that he's been searching for all season, throws over 22 meters at the Prefontaine Classic. We don't have video of it, unfortunately, but this picture says it all. 22.09 for Trip. Dude, I said to him when I interviewed him after Indoor Nationals that I was like, you remind me of Adam Nelson. The energy he brings to shot put is unparalleled.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, no, this dude is energy. Like, he is our newer generation Adam Nelson, and
he is the hype.
He is the hype. Yes. Like, Dane mentioned this the other day. He was like, dude, like the way that we would idolize Nelson for his energy and for throwing 22, like Tripp should be getting that same attention.
Yeah.
Like, he has thrown 22, he's had several throws over 21. He's been a top 5 guy in the US for the last couple of years now. Like, he should be getting that same attention, and we're definitely, like, you and I are definitely people who gravitate towards like, yo, like Tripp is that real deal.
Yeah.
And it's just like continuing to push that narrative because like he is, like, he's proving, the world, like he is one of the top shot putters in the world, not in the US, in the world.
He's had a good amount of distance to his personal best this year too, like at least a foot now, a foot and a half. And what's crazy is we've seen him throw further.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure his mark from the World Shot Putzer is actually further than this 22.09.
Yeah.
Which is crazy to think about.
Yeah.
Well done, Tripp.
Absolutely.
And to continue out this competition was ridiculous, as Roger Steen is one of those many men who broke 22 meters for the first time. Roger went 22.11. Oh, my bad. He did not break 22 meters for the first time. He did set a new personal best. He actually threw 22 meters 2 years ago at Tucson for the first time. But 22.11, new personal best. Couldn't ask for a better place to do it than the Prefontaine Classic. Sam, what do you see on his throw here? What do you see that Roger's doing? And what do you see for him going to Nationals?
Yeah, dude, Roger is just another guy who's just been dialed in this season and has just been cranking big tosses. Like, I got to watch him train and I got to watch him compete at Ironwood.
Well, before we get into that, what's it like watching him train? Like, is he just loading up? He reminds me of someone who's loading up the bar like Joe does.
No, more so just in the circle.
Oh, okay.
I didn't get to see him in the weight room.
Okay.
Actually, no, that's a lie. I did see him in the weight room. I think he was benching like 365 for reps. Like, it just looked so easy, and I was like, wow, I'm so it was somewhere between, I don't know. He had a lot of weight on the bar, and I was just like, wow, like, he is benching what I'm squatting, like, right now. Like, it was just like one of those things where it's like, I'm going to go over there and wait till you're done because, like, you're going crazy right now.
Actually, now that you mention it, and I'm starting to see it watching him throw, do you know who he throws like now? And especially with his body type? Dude, he's like Darlin.
Interesting.
He's like Romani. Like, especially like looking at... Dude, how often do I talk about the shot putter walk? Mm-hmm. He's got the shot putter walk, the Reese Hoffa, Joe Kovacs. Elbows back, chest out wide, stomach first.
That's an interesting take. No, he's definitely stacked. He's definitely, yoked right now. But, dude, it's just like one of those things where just like watching him just train, watching him throw in the circle, like he looks smooth, he looks consistent. And, Ironwood was a good competition, but like he really showed out here.
Yeah.
You know, being one of the 5 to go over 22.
Yeah, dude, it's gonna be awesome. I have high hopes that I think Roger's going to make his first outdoor team. I really believe it. He's coming off a world indoor silver medal. He's showing to be in really good form. He's very consistent this season. There's 4 spots again, with Krauser. So it'll be interesting to see, I think what's going to be interesting to see is 22 meters. Is that even going to get it done to make the team at Nationals?
We'll see.
Because the way the U.S. squad is looking right now, we might even see a deeper competition come Nationals.
Yeah, dude, it's going to have to be because obviously we got Krauser. You don't know what he's going to do, but it's Ryan Krauser.
Yeah.
You have Joe. Joe should make it. You have Peyton, who is amongst, the conversations. You have Tripp. You have Roger.
You have Josh.
You have Josh.
You have Jordan.
You have Jordan. That's 7 guys right there. That's crazy.
And that's not even talking about the bubble guys who've thrown over 21 meters who could potentially break through and throw mid-21s as well.
Yes.
Oh, man. Dude, Nationals is going to be exciting. I'm telling you. And this right here was the feel-good moment of the weekend. If it wasn't Rudy's American record over 83 meters, it was probably Chuck's 22:10. Chuck Inekwechi, longtime professional thrower for Nigeria, African record holder, breaks his African record, throwing over 22 meters for the first time at the Prefontaine Classic. He was part of that legendary group of guys, 5 guys over 22. Chuck has been talking for years about him throwing 22 meters. He's talked about Darrell, goading him into throwing 22. I think Chuck did a podcast 2 years ago where Darrell was I think Chuck just went 21.90 and Darrell's man, can you just throw 22? So Chuck has had not only his own individual motivation, his internal motivation to throw 22, but he's had a lot of external motivation from people around him to throw 22 meters.
Absolutely.
So do it at 32 years old, 22-meter throw, 22:10 at the Prefontaine Classic. We're going to cover his reaction to this throw following this. What do you see on Chuck's throw, and what do you think about Chuck finally breaking 22?
Yeah, dude, it's just one of those things where it's finally.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Finally. Dude, this, it gives me goosebumps even just thinking about it now. It's just it's one of those, throws where it's I'm so happy that it finally happened. This is a dude who's been balling out, for years now, throwing 21 plus for.
Dude, he's made 5 world and Olympic finals. He's been one of the most consistent guys at the world championship than anyone in the entire world.
Absolutely. And, it's one of those throws where, he earned it.
Yeah.
He's been balling. He's been throwing 21, high, 21 mid for a very long time. And it's it's good to see that it finally just pieced together, being amongst 4 other competitors to go over 22. He did it. You did it at Prefontaine Classic, which has history in itself, and you did it in the most stacked competition.
Yeah.
So it's just it's a huge, accomplishment for him. It's a huge accomplishment for us, the, fans, the community watching him. And it's just one of those things where it's just I hope this just elevates his baseline even further and he just continues to throw and push the sport even more.
I think this is going to be a watershed moment for Chuck. I think we're going to see more big throws like this from him in the future. A lot of something like 22 is such a mental barrier. Mm-hmm. Even if you're physically capable of doing it, you just need to get I think he's going to talk about this before. He's probably had multiple throws over 22 meters, either in training or in warm-ups or fouls that just were not marked. And to finally get it in a comp like this, where it's all eyes are on you, the big stadium feel, you did it in home territory in the United States. He competes for Nigeria, but he actually trains at Purdue. So I all power to Chuck. It's awesome. But the reaction to this mark is what got me quite a bit emotional, to be honest. So I want to play this here.
I threw 21.90, and I just wanted to throw 22 meters. That's the new standard. So I figured I have a couple years left in my career. I got 22.
Wow. On which throw?
Second one.
Second one, you nailed it. Obviously, that meant a lot to you.
Yeah.
How do you spend the next 4 throws trying to go past what this was for you?
Just stick to the plan, stick to the game plan. Like, I've changed my diet, trying to PR at this meet. So, dropped a little bit of weight, up the protein a bit. I've been doing some crazy lifts, jump squats with 500 plus pounds, just trying to compete with the bigger guys, and it worked out. So that throw, everything kind of came together. I was in perfect balance. I threw it. I didn't even fight to stay in the ring. So it all just worked out. So it felt great. Probably my favorite throw ever.
Wow.
So I came here last year.
Did you catch that?
Which part?
Jump squats with 500 pounds.
Dude, I saw that and I'm like, there's no freaking way.
I believe it.
But it's Chuck.
Yeah, I believe it 100%.
I watched this man squat 700 pounds for reps when he was like 23 years old with chains.
Yeah.
Deep squats. But yeah, dude, I saw this interview and I was tearing up, man. I had to get the tissues. Clearly this was such an emotional moment for him. He's crying. Dane actually ended up doing an interview with him that was actually posted to Throws University Instagram if you want to check that out. But I like this one because this is Chuck like immediately following the comp, realizing what he did and like taking in all that emotion. And I think to me is like, dude, this is what makes a sport worth doing. Absolutely. Is moments like this. And Sam, like as a competitive thrower currently, what do you think when you listen to an interview like this from, another current athlete that's competing, and like what those big marks can be to him? Especially you and him are pretty similar in age as well. Yeah,
I think the biggest thing, and it goes to age, and he mentioned it, he was like, he finally broke the 22-meter barrier at age 32.
Yeah.
He's been chasing it for a very long time, and it's like he finally got it done, which is very similar to me. Like, I'm 30, and, I was chasing 60 meters for a very long time. I was able to get it done, earlier this year at Ramona, and I've come very close to it outside of Ramona. And It's just like one of those things where it's like, don't give up.
Yeah.
Like if you have that vision, don't give up. Especially if you're in a position where you can continue. Because not everyone is in a position where they can continue.
Certainly.
But if you are, keep pushing towards it because it can happen. You just got to be patient. You got to keep working at it, and it will happen eventually. And I feel like Chuck is definitely, the best story this year to do it.
Yeah.
Obviously, I am, on the smaller scale, the same story. But it's just like one of those things where it's like if you
But it's relatable.
Yeah.
It's all something that I feel like, especially when people graduate college, they feel like, oh, I didn't throw what I probably could have, but it's college is over. I got to stop being an athlete. And it's like if you do have the opportunity to keep throwing, and it's like, dude, another example is someone like Tyler Williams. He's been grinding for 10 years since he graduated. True. And he just hit the world standard this year, throwing 78 meters in the men's hammer. So it's like, I think what's also worth saying here about Chuck is he also was like, you would clearly tell he knew what he had to do to get 22 meters is not the same thing he had to do to throw 2190. Is he had a game plan that was specific to this meet that he executed. And I think that's the important part is like when people talk about stick to the process, it's also important to understand how that process evolves as you get older. And I think what you hear from Chuck is this is a more mature athlete, not only in age, but in terms of experience of what he needs to do to get to throw far and break that next plateau. But yeah, like, dude, Chuck's awesome. And if you don't get a little emotional watching something like this, I don't know if you have a soul, because like, this to me is like, this is why human beings exist. It's to do things that we didn't think we could do, push past hardships, achieve great things, and achieve our personal goals to make life worth living for. And that to me is why you throw.
Absolutely.
So yeah. Any other final thoughts on Chuck here?
He made the impossible possible.
Couldn't say it better myself. Well done, Chuck. So that's going to be it for today's episode. Again, if you want to see some of the best throwers in the entire world compete completely for free without having to watch any 10,000 meter distance races or middle school track interfering, you're watching elite throws, you can check out the Throws University YouTube channel. We have 4 streams this Friday. July 11th, starting at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The LA Throws Cup is going down in Los Angeles and is going down on the Throws University YouTube channel. Make sure you check out those live streams this Friday. We're excited to have you. We're going to see some big throws from Sam Mattis, Janae Casnavoid, Joe Brown, and the new American record holder, Rudy Winkler. Can you believe that? That man threw 83 meters, and it all goes down this Friday. But if you want to become a better thrower, you want to chase your dream just like Chuck did, understand that's a long process to achieve those goals. We have the program, personalized programming just for you, created by my friend and coach, Sam here. Sam, explain to people what they can get in their personalized programming.
Yeah, so like we said before, this program is just a program designated to you, built for you by myself and overlooked by Dane Miller, head throws coach at Garage Strength. And we just want to make sure that we're providing you with all the tools and resources to be successful. Now, that program will have a lift, based on the time of year, and a throws prescription based on the equipment that you have or, equipment that you are able to get. And we're just going to make sure that you're in a position that you can progress your throws. And it's not just there. We have the custom programming. We have the technique coaching where it's just focusing on technique. If you already have a strength program, you can just focus on that technique side. And then we have a lot of other programs that are designated throughout the year. So if you're just looking for something quick, you can head over and pick up an elite program.
Check that out today so you guys can drop some bombs. Peace.